I'm Scott L. Miller. It is Thursday night, and that means it is time for the Nicaragua Live. And we've got dogs who are barking tonight, and they're excited about being on the show. So we are getting this kicked off a little bit before 5 o'clock here. I've been sick all week, so my voice is on the low side. So we're moving the microphone in a little bit more so I don't have to speak up. I've considered the possibility that I may have to sing the entire show this evening because it doesn't seem to bother me too much when I'm singing. But we're going to get the link shot out to people, let people know that we have kicked off the show a little bit on the early side. Not much. Did the dog just move the camera? Yep, there goes the camera. That is the puppy running into it, as he probably will be doing for much of the evening, as he likes to do. He is getting bigger and bigger. We are also having great luck with our sweet little kittens. They are all doing very well, getting bigger, and they have started hanging out and wanting affection, which is new. That just started yesterday. Now the big dog has the crinkly toy. That is going to be a problem. You guys are going to have to let me know how distracting that is. It's a little bit much. So, hoping everyone is doing well this evening. We've got Diego is on early. Says, hey, Beverly Evans is on. Bev's here. Hope that everyone had a good week. Ow, dog is on my leg. Come here. You want to be on the show? Of course, our news for this evening, it just came out that the Leon Old Hospital is on fire. We have don't really know how bad the fire is. But it's serious for sure. Old hospital is burning. All right, we're gonna deal with this right now because this is gonna be a problem. Okay, the two of you. This is, first of all, this is not a toy for you to rip up. That's his toy. There's so many toys for you. You guys should go play with them. But you are barky, so you're gonna go out there. There we go. Okay. Yes, you're a good dog, but please don't rip up his toy. He loves that one. It's special for him. And, somebody touched the camera. That's weird. I knew I had that set differently, and now it has changed. So, hopefully, sorry for the little gap there. And, yeah, so I've been sick this week quite a bit. The whole week, pretty much. I've had this bronchial thing going on. I don't feel too bad, but obviously the coughing is unfortunate and unpleasant. But it's been going okay. Not taking anything for it, trying not to. If I can get away with it, I do seem to be improving, so I don't think it's too terribly bad, but that is the situation at the moment. So how are all of you? How's things going on? Jana's here. Ramon walked by and saw them welding earlier. Yeah, someone else mentioned that as well. Welders by the laundry seems to be the best guess as to what has happened out there. So we'll see what happens. And all right, we're just getting the word out so people know to join the show. I can't think of a whole lot that has happened this week. Seems like relatively slow week. Of course, the thing I have in the title there is my daughters and I have been playing Dungeons and Dragons for much of the week. Finally got a little bit of it's just me and my daughters, right? Not a big group. I'm stuck running this group. I really hope to get a group together that I don't have to run because I like to actually play the game. I don't mind running a group. I just really like playing the game, so I don't want to do one and not get to do the other, right? There's going to be a lot of that tonight, so my apologies now. I've been coughing pretty hard. I got some hot tea. We're going to be filling the hot tea up quite a few times during the show. Roger's here. He's on while painting the garage. Hopefully he's got a big screen TV up in the garage and got me on there. Jan says he's been going to that farmer's market to sell his jewelry. Oh, that's right. That's right. Ramona's selling his jewelry at the farmer's market. Very cool. For those who don't know, the farmer's market here in Leon is at Casa Abierto on Thursday mornings, running from 10 to 1. So a good place to go get some produce from Mike the Farmer and jewelry from Ramon and some other people selling stuff there. I don't know what all they have. Plus, I believe you can get breakfast while you're doing all of that, which is a nice way to spend the morning. So things to check out in Leon. It should be pretty cool. So yeah, my daughters and I have been playing. It's hard to talk. We'll see how long we go tonight. This might be a tough one. I considered singing the entire show tonight and making it like Scott sings the live show because that would be funny and it doesn't seem to bother me as much as long as I'm singing. So I'm like, that would be weird. But I was a voice major at uni, so I could present the show as a musical, Nicaragua Live, the musical, and see how that goes. which would be something. Our power was out a couple hours in Saragossa earlier, so I lost a couple of classes. I need new UPSs. Oh, you should have said something. Dominica was just at PriceSmart a few hours ago and at Comtech just before that, so there was an opportunity today while they're in Managua. Eid Group says, hospital on fire? Yes, Leon Old Hospital downtown near the cathedral is on fire. I'll bring up a map so people can see where that is, what we're talking about, just in case anybody is unaware. I'm sure lots of people are unaware. A lot of you have not been to Leon. Why would you know where the hospital is? Give me a second to get this set up. There we go. Yeah, this is pretty big news here in Leon to have our hospital on fire. A little bit surprised by that. So this is the, oh, nope, that's not it. That's the city of Leon, Nicaragua. And we're just going to zoom in over here. There's the basilica. Oh, if it lets me. Why is it not letting me? Oh, it's doing its thing where it won't react. Oh, I hate that. Yeah, it's completely frozen. There we go. So this is the basilica. This is the hospital right here. So this old building right there, that's most of this block, is currently on fire, or was just several minutes ago. There's a big basketball court over here. Luckily, this is not very likely to go up in flames. We do have an auditorium right here, though, so that's potentially a problem. Just waiting to happen. If that was the catch. And then we have the Hotel Austria is right over here, and then some houses down here. So yeah, but this is a pretty big structure. I think it's 5 stories, probably not 4 stories. It's a big structure though, and you can see it's just 1 block jump from the cathedral. That is going to be tough. And this is the Central Market right here. So the big market, the big cathedral. This is Central Park, and this is the hospital all right there. And then this, I don't know how much of this. I think all of this, I don't know how much of this. This is the Colegio Tridentino San Ramon, which when you're in the square, on the plaza, this front of it is this iconic old building. And then it has this beautiful like fountain or something in the middle. I've never been able to see that. I don't know what this is over here. And then this is their big basketball court, which when you're walking down 2nd Street, it's like, why is there a basketball court there? It's really hard to like guess that it's part of this structure on the plaza. Like you feel so removed from it when you're standing there. And then this, whatever this is, the Centro de Salud, I guess, has this beautiful courtyard as well. It's amazing how many beautiful courtyards are hidden. If you're just looking at satellites of the downtown, everything has a courtyard, and some of them are really cool, and some of you would never know are there, but they're everywhere, right? Everything's got them. So, and especially these things in the middle, you get some really weird structures throughout the city as you do these things, and of course the Parque Héroes y Mártires. All right. So we're back. So that's where the fire is at the big hospital right there. 5 Min Projects 817, new to the channel and love it. Deciding between moving to Central America or Southeast Asia. Well, that's awesome. Let's welcome. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for jumping on the live stream, and greetings from beautiful Central America. We love it here. Definitely a difficult choice between, right, Central America, Southeast Asia, and I think East Africa has a lot to offer as well. You've got a couple regions that all share certain characteristics. The tropics, I suppose, and tend to be very low cost, tend to be very, very nice places you could potentially live, and a lot of good options there. Southeast Asia. What particular parts of Southeast Asia are you looking at? If it was me, I'd be super. I tend a little bit more towards the east. Vietnam and Cambodia would be top of my list. Laos, probably pretty good. Malaysia, acceptable. Thailand, it doesn't wow me. I'm not like gotta go to Thailand, but certainly a lot of people find it very interesting. We have someone from the channel who recently left Burma and thought that was nice for a long time. Has some problems now, but And of course, Indonesia sneaks into some of that as well. So you got a lot of really nice, decently safe, and all quite affordable options going on down there. Interesting. Once in a while, we get people who are really considering both regions, but honestly, not that often. I think we tend to get people who are really into the lifestyle, the more urban lifestyle, especially of Southeast Asia, just tend to go that direction. And those that are really looking for, strong Latin culture just come to this region, and it is what it is. Often people make that decision at a very high level. It doesn't take a lot of on the ground decision making. I know for me, I would absolutely love Southeast Asia. I know I would. I know it would be fantastic. But I love Latin culture. I love the day-to-day lifestyle of living here. I know it's more expensive, and that's something I'm willing to put up with because I like what it's like here. Right? It's not expensive. It's just more expensive. Right? If I was being absolutely every penny mattered and like I am, I don't need to travel back anywhere, right? I do have some things that tie me to the time zone. I have some reasons why being in this part of the world to have some small advantages logistically, but if it truly was a cost thing, Southeast Asia would work really well for me. Super safe, awesome, extremely cheap, awesome, great food, awesome, right? A lot of big check marks there, and no need to come back to the United States for me. I have I live really close to the US. I could be there in 2 hours, but I don't need that, right? I don't have something I need to go back for. I don't need to go back and forth or to be there at a moment's notice. So the extra cost of flights to and from North America, that is a big factor for some people. In Southeast Asia, I don't have. So for me, it really comes down to a personal affinity for Latin American culture. It just vibes for me. Much of it, right? But like Argentina, which I love, doesn't. It's enough not Latin American to kind of lose some of that. But Bolivia does, right? So it's all finding the place. Like I like Argentina. I just wouldn't necessarily pick it. It feels too much like Europe, which I like, but I'm not living in Europe for a reason, right? And I did, and I loved it, but I prefer here. So from those perspectives, if I didn't have that Latin affinity, then Southeast Asia would be really, really attractive, right? They can buy things cheaper. They have a bigger selection of products. I'm vegetarian, so the vegetarian food there is off the hook. Here, it's very difficult. A lot of good reasons to draw you down there. My wife really loves Southeast Asia. She really likes Thailand. I find the regulations and such in Thailand very nerve-wracking. Let's put it that way. Whereas some other, that would not be my first choice. I would love to visit. I want to spend time, but it's to base myself in Thailand, I think would be not what I was looking for. I would much more likely find myself in Africa than I would in Southeast Asia. But Southeast Asia being an awesome choice. I would not, no negatives, just who has more positives for me. For me, if I wasn't in Latin America, almost certainly, I think I would be in North Africa, and after that, possibly East Africa, and then Southeast Asia. I don't know why I'm telling you this. It doesn't really matter. It's not what you're asking. But that's 5 minutes says I'm in Canada and we'll be looking at Cambodia. Awesome choice. Very, very cool country. Very low cost, warm, humid, like Nicaragua. I feel like Cambodia would probably be my first choice as well. It's just got everything. Really low cost, super safe, great people, neat location, like in middle of things, a little bit off the tourist path. You're not falling into that like in Thailand or Malaysia. You're going to get a lot of that like, oh, I'm one of the tourists with everybody else. And they some people love that, the Costa Rican crowd. That's what they're looking for, right? Oh, I want to be part of this permanent vacation thing rather than it being your lifestyle. But people looking at Cambodia, I feel, would be much more likely to look at Nicaragua and vice versa. Whereas people who are looking at Thailand would look at Costa Rica. That's actually an interesting comparison that I've never actually said out loud before, but I think that's very true. Edwin says, yes, id group. Indeed, there was a fire at Leon Old Hiodra Hospital, but firefighters prevented it from getting 100% burnt and left completely destroyed. How bad is it? Hi, Edwin. Yes. How bad is it? We haven't heard yet. 5 minutes says, your honesty is what makes your channel awesome. Well, thank you. Alan says, I couldn't do Asia, the food. Great food, lol. So funny, right after my comment. What is Latin culture, Diego says. Brian Watson says, here at home early, I have an IT friend that relocated to Singapore. I'm thinking about it. Singapore would not be on my list under any circumstances whatsoever. All the negatives that I feel about Thailand was zero of the positives. Singapore, I don't even want to fly through. For me, not in any chance whatsoever. And I had a job offer in Singapore a number of years ago, really, really well-paid job offer in Singapore. And so we looked into it a lot, and we were just like, no. Id Group says, you described it as the old, I also called it the old hospital. No, it is not used as a hospital. We have the largest hospital in Central America on the north side of town. The one downtown was evacuated weeks ago. So the timing is pretty perfect for it to burn down. It would actually be kind of handy if it burned to ash. If there was just a big ash pile down there and they could start over with nothing to worry about, that would actually, as long as no one was in it, that would have been perfect. It's not as negative as it might seem. You don't want a fire in the middle of the city, right? So if after the fact the result was nothing else was touched, no one was harmed, and the building was just gone, that would be okay. That wouldn't be a bad result because they would just bulldoze it and build who knows what. But we don't need a hospital there. We have so much hospital facilities in this city. We actually have another hospital. We'll just, hold on, see if I can do this live. Can I find it on the map? So that's second. I'm going to go up to first. There's Pawnee Paz. So this is and you can see it is now, it says Clinica Mercedes. This is another hospital facility right here that is no longer needed. I mean, it might be useful to have it back open, but it's currently not open. And then we have the old hospital right here. We just don't need that many hospitals in this town. We have so many hospitals. And then let's see if this is the new one. And you can see how big that is compared to the old ones. It's not just that the hospital is many times the size. Look at all the parking. This is all like ambulance entrances or something. There's parking along the sides. There's parking over here somewhere. You got all these roads in front. This is all part of the hospital complex out here. Maybe not all of these, but tons of this, right? And I think a lot of this stuff is actually like hospital service stuff and doctors' clinics. This is part of the hospital over here. I think the hospital may have some of this. This is obviously marked as a hospital. So this is a assistant hospital sort of over here. There's another hospital right here. So this hospital complex is so unbelievable. And notice this is the Centro de Salud. This is the local clinic. And then there's a baseball field down here. So much capacity up there, and you can see all the space around it. They're prepared for this to just be the national or the core of Central American healthcare. So we don't need these downtown facilities in any meaningful way. Brian says, might be different for me being single. Well, the things about Singapore are really that the laws are incredibly strict. It is not a flexible place at all, and it's extremely expensive. And it's incredibly small, right? So you have this tiny city where it's very hard to travel anywhere. You have a political system that who cares how it's done, but it's incredibly authoritarian, where every moment of your life is governed by the government. So like kind of like New York. Can I walk down the street with a beer? You can't even walk down the street with a visible can. Can I chew gum? No, you can't chew gum in the country. Can you just can I do this? Can I do that? Things you would never think of. And of course, if you grow up there, it's like you're just used to, you just don't have these freedoms. But coming from living in the West and being like, so I can just, talk to people on the street. No, you'll go to jail. Oh, I can chew bubble gum, right? No, you get whipped for that. You get whipped for that? Is that, yeah, that's the actual punishment for bubble gum, right? Like, I appreciate the cleanliness and the reasons that they're doing it, but like, that's so off the hook. Things you would never cross your mind or a problem are whipping offenses. Well, and you asked the perfect question, Brian. How is that different from the USA right now? Exactly the same. There's a reason why I won't come back to the US. I won't set foot in the US, right? I won't do it. And partially, I also don't have healthcare, right? So I have really good reasons for not doing it. But I wouldn't come back to the US. US is not on my top 100 list. right? That would actually be interesting to do a list of where I think the USA falls at this point on my list, because previously it was like, oh, it's not in my top 80 or whatever. Now I'm not sure it's in the top 180, right? But having lived in 8 countries, having been to 40 or whatever, knowing some that I haven't been to pretty well, I know that there are tons of places that I would consider way above the US and way above Singapore. So is it as bad as the US? No, probably not. And way less capricious. That's really bad, right? Are they doing arbitrary detention? I don't think so. They're just really strict, right? That's the difference. The US is not strict, it's arbitrary. Singapore was British. So same problems, has those. It falls into the former British colonies that have held on to that Britishness that I will never ever consider. So it's in that group, but would I consider it before the US? Absolutely. Like, I'm not saying it's that bad, but that's so far below my threshold line. Like, we're talking about, I would consider Thailand. Feels like I don't think I would ever consider Thailand. But Thailand falls into the it would be neat category, not into the I hope to avoid it category, right? So there's so many great places to go, safe, cheap, interesting, comfortable, good lifestyle. There's no need to go to bad ones. Early IT friend located to, since you described, might be different from dating single. Nurse who works at the new hospital said that everything there is completely state of the art, but so much they're still learning how to use everything. Roger, who's on here, his wife is actually one of the American trainers on the equipment there. That's a real thing. So Diego says, what is Latin culture? So that's a tough one. How do you describe a culture? But there is a very easy to define or very easy to recognize Latin culture. If you grow up in Latin America, I imagine it's much harder, right, to kind of come up with what identifies Latin America so strong. And of course, there are places that, like Argentina, kind of falls into Latin America, yet misses Latin American culture for the most part. But there are very noticeable things, right? From the way that food is prepared, from the way that families hang out, to the way that free time is spent, to the types and styles of music and dance that are popular, to what community times are like, what cities are built like, what shared history to quite some degree, right? That's an important part of any particular cultural affinity or grouping. So much of Latin America has a very similar history, right? Maybe the details end up a little bit different, but the overall thread is incredibly common, right? You have a pre-Columbian history that is relatively varied, the same way that European history or African history was varied before colonialization, and then this impact of invasion on a large scale, and then hundreds and hundreds of years of oppression, and then a shared history, but not all at the same time. But very close in time, throwing off the shackles of that oppression, and this building unique identities in a post-colonial world while still suffering from colonial borders and legacies, right? Combined with, to some degree, a commonality in pre-Columbian cultures, right? The groupings of language, the styles of music, and so forth that existed in the West prior to the Columbianization of the continent were varied for sure, right? In the same way, and possibly quite a bit more than in Europe. But let's face it, if we actually go and look at the variety in Europe, while it's varied, it's not as varied as it might be, right? Like there is a certain amount of, yes, you're in Europe, whether you're in Russia or France or Norway or Italy, it's not that different from place to place. Certainly some things are different, but not that much. The weather may change, but the people don't all that much. And the same thing in the West, the pre-Columbian population wasn't that different. You would still be able to identify someone who was from Alaska or Greenland or Tierra del Fuego or Mexico or Peru as being not from Africa, Asia, or Europe or Australia or Zealandia or Antarctica pretty easily. Right. And without seeing them, right, from linguistic characteristics, culinary characteristics, musical characteristics, and so forth. And so there is a very homogenous Latin culture that stretches from much of the southwestern United States, plus bits of, Florida and that area, but Texas and Colorado and California, Arizona, New Mexico, bits of Nevada and through there, right? You have this whole region. If you're in like Pueblo, Colorado, you definitely feel it. And then that just keeps going. And even Argentina still has that, right? And so that whole region, including Brazil, right? You get this like, this has a certain vibe to it that varies more than Europe, I would say today, but it varies, but especially because of linguistic history and especially because of shared, right, television and movies and experiences and biome. There just is a lot of commonality throughout the region. And if you move away and then move back, you'll be like, oh, yeah, you don't have to know what country you're in to know you're in Latin America. And you don't have to hear them speaking Spanish or Portuguese to know you're in Latin America. You can identify it very quickly. Nosy doesn't know is here. I am currently pursuing residency. Any tips to share? Well, so Luke is the one who probably knows the most about it. So first of all, the question always, what's driving you to residency? The second question, what type of residency are you going for? How long have you been here now? And my residency is investor, permanent residency. So probably not useful for most people. Luke just did the rentista, or he may have, actually, I don't remember. He may have done pensionado, but he did it recently and quickly, and he has a pretty good idea of what the process is right now. Mark V 7307 or Mark 5 7307. It may be a zip code. It may be like a Roman numeral code thing. I don't know. Says, hello from Philly. How's your Spanish in León, Nicaragua? Hablo español todo el día, es más o menos porque tengo un equipo, todos mis equipos en mi negocio hablan en español todo el día, entonces es normal para mí y mi equipo hablamos en español para horas por día y todos mis empleados aquí en León, Aida y Chepe, Marcela, todos hablan español conmigo porque nadie habla inglés aquí o solo un poquito cuando está borracha. Entonces pienso que mi español es más o menos. Por supuesto, tengo que mejorar mucho. Pero hace 11 años aquí y hace 37 años tenía clases de español en colegio, 4 años allí. Pienso que es más o menos, es suficiente, bastante. Oh, Diego says, first time I've heard you speak in Spanish. You speak so well. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Grazie mille. I also speak Italian, but not for a long time. For some reason, when I'm on the show, I think I'm better than when I'm not. I actually speak English better on the show than when not. When I'm live, I speak better. It's just a weird Scott thing. I've been on television here a few times in Spanish, and that's nerve-wracking, but people are like, no, we understand what you're saying. And I'm like, all right, okay, cool. I kind of like the pressure. It's kind of neat, and I like being able to say I'm on like I've been on TV in the U.S. like silly stuff, right? Nothing impressive, like high school things or whatever. I've been on the news. I've been interviewed on the news because like something happened and I was there, but it's not impressive to be on TV in your own language. But when you're on TV being interviewed intentionally, not like, oh, he was at the fire, so this is who was standing there, and you're like, I don't know how to say anything. But to actually be on TV for the purpose of being interviewed and speaking on TV in Spanish is pretty cool. So that's my feather in the cap item. Mark says, do you understand the local lingo and what it means? Lol, I know it can be trying at times. Oh, not bad, he says. Thank you. Yeah, for the most part. I mean, remember, I've been here 11 years, so there's a lot of things that I'm pretty used to. There's a lot that still throws me, of course. There's a lot of just Spanish in general that throws me. But when I wasn't living here, I've also lived in Spain. I've lived in Panama. I work in Bolivia. I have offices in Mexico. I have had offices in Guatemala. I'm working on getting into Ecuador this year. I have offices in Argentina. And so I'm having technical discussions with engineers today, right? 2 hours before this show, I'm on a conference call with Nicaragua, Bolivia, and Argentina every day, and speaking in Spanish. So it's not like I hide in my house in Leon and never speak any Spanish. Even here, someone pops in and speaks to me at least with every hour in Spanish. And definitely, Ida speaks very quickly with the beach slang, like the really thick accent and stuff. That can be quite hard, and I'm constantly like, what? And then she slows down, and I'm like, oh, okay. Because it's just, I do find when I'm in Mexico or Spain or especially Guatemala that my level of speaking just goes way up, and when I'm in Nicaragua it goes down a bit. If I go to like Argentina, it's just no. It's so hard. Chile actually isn't that bad. EP Life checking in from Messiah. The title Leon Hospital is on fire intrigued me. Peter Fowl. Yes, the old hospital is or was burning. Edwin said maybe it's under control now, but looks like pretty big damage. Larry is here, big fan. Yes, is watching. I cannot pronounce her name. When you say it, it seems easy, and when I see it written, or is that not spelled right? Because that's Horelis, and that is not right. And I'm live, so sorry. Diego says, what I don't like about our flavor of Spanish is how much people curse. I think it's culture. Oh, actually, you guys don't curse anywhere near as much as Mexico. Not even close. Now, maybe you don't like Mexico because they curse all the time. I gotcha. U.S. and Mexico do a lot of cursing compared to here, I would say. And here curses a bit, way more than, say, Argentina. More than Bolivia, I think. But I think it's middle of the road at best, or at worst, depending on what you do. Geraldo says, habla español. Gracias. Mark says, what kind of work do you do or business, if you don't mind the question? So I run an engineering and IT outsourcing firm. We've been around for, Sorry, for those who are joining late, first of all, give it a thumbs up. But I'm quite sick. I've been sick for like 3 days. It's bronchitis or something very akin. I'll live and all, and I'm getting better, but it's been a rough couple days. I'm sleeping okay. I'm not like my head's okay at the moment, knock on wood. But it's just, I've got this cough, and it's if I yawn, it hurts. Like I've worn out my throat from the cough. I'm just forcing the phlegm up, and then it's fine. So there's no fever, no nothing like that. So So we've been around for 27 years. We got founded in 1999, and we do everything, right? We do all IT outsourcing, so companies all over the world can hire us to do absolutely anything. From you're a small mom and pop and you need some real basic computer support, to you're a Fortune 10 and you need some very specific skill set that isn't broadly available. We do everything, absolutely everything in IT, including if you wanted to start your own IT firm, you come to a company like ours and have a new firm up and running in 24 hours, right? Everything from new websites and branding, some of that we would expect from you, but not much. All the way to having call centers and IT support and having defined your service offerings and just everything, right? Literally turnkey. All you need to do is bring customers. You don't need to do anything. We even make our own tooling for our industry. So pretty much every single tool that we use, we make ourselves, which is pretty unique. And there's one or two things we don't, but very, very little. And we've had some people that are like, wait a minute, you make your own chat platform, you make your own ticket platform, you make your own remote monitoring platform, we make our own HR platform, like we make everything, right? And then our other side of the house, in case it's not obvious, is a software engineering firm, but it's mostly internal. We don't really do outside stuff, except that's very special. We do more than that. We're also a phone company. We make our own email platform now. We are starting to release a bunch of open source software that's going to be hitting the market soon. So we do a lot. We're quite big in a lot of different areas and work in a lot of different countries and regions. Diego says, Chile, not that bad. They are famously the worst at speaking clearly. That's what I always thought, but the first time I really was just stuck with a bunch of Chileans at an airport. Suddenly I'm like, this is really not hard at all. This is quite understandable. Talking about engineering, it's already happening. I was brought to a new project to fix a code base a vibe coder made. Such a mess. Mark says, my wife and I are thinking of retiring in Nicaragua, Carazo to be exact. Awesome. I love Carazo. It's such a beautiful area. And we've got some people who are down there currently. I don't know if they're on the show right this moment, but they are. Kind of thing. Diego says, white label it firm. We are actually a white label it firm. I know, Alan, it's really close, but I don't want to show it to you until it's like not just close. But it's doing pretty well. It's actually doing stuff in the background while I work on it. We've actually mostly moved to it for internal stuff. But we're not even going to talk about debuting it until the mobile app is done, because that's really important, and until it does some AI automation and TalkBack stuff. But it's got full email integration is done. It's actually already ahead of pretty much anything we use, but it's got a few bugs, so we're really close. Carazo is awesome. Yeah, we're a white. So Diego, yeah, we're like the ultimate white labeling firm. You can white label our phones, our tool sets, our IT. We don't white label our software engineering. We generally don't even make it available to the outside world. We're internal for ourselves, but it's the ultimate in white labeling. Most places are like, hey, you can white label phones. That's a thing. You can white label like some of the tool sets, some little things. We will white label the entire company, everything. Or because we're well known, you can not white label it and use it as a reputation thing, right? Oh, we're a partner with this company, and then you automatically get that brand recognition that people can be like, oh, those guys, right? We can look them up. They've been around for 27 years. They publish a lot of papers. They do a lot of things. They talk at conferences. They put on conferences. Okay, this is different than all your competitors, right? We can talk to big competitors, and they don't do those things in most cases. So that's a big deal, right? We're the company that other IT companies tend to turn to for things. Companies of all sizes and all industries, which is pretty cool. Janet says, Scott, I think you hang around with a less profane crowd. There's a lot of swearing in some circles here. It's what makes me laugh so much. Luke is here. Hola, y'all. Talk Oh, 97420 Empire 3. What a name that is. Some of you guys have the weirdest handles. I cannot figure out what all is going on. It says D&D 5e or OSR. So I love OSR. Personally, I think that's probably the strongest. But I am playing with my kids who are not new to D&D. They've got a few years, but they don't do it a lot. We're kind of moving into doing it a lot. It's a lot of fun to hang out and do here. So we are currently D&D 5.5, the 2024 version is actually what we're doing now. So my daughters are 14 and 17, and we're just jumping back in. So the last time they played was 5e, when it was pretty new. Not super new, but reasonably new. And now we're playing the new revision, which is not very revised, right? Super close. But the updated 5e with the 2024 rules, it's hard to believe how old 5e is just in general now. And so we've started playing that. I'm looking at some other groups and trying to figure out what we want to play. If I was going to play OSR, almost certainly I would jump into Pathfinder 2nd, possibly 13th Age. Rather than 3.5 directly or whatever. But I do love the Dark Sun campaign setting, but that didn't come out in OSR, only came out in 4th. So I mean, you can backport it, obviously. But this is my cold water and then my tea. Going back and forth. But the reason we're really playing with 5.5 at this point is I've never used D&D Beyond, or I did for like a tiny bit of gameplay where I was a player, and we were playing Curse of Strahd on 5, and we are only using it for very limited things. And now they've got the VTT with a bunch of stuff going on. So because we're here in Nicaragua and like we want to play with a lot of people online potentially, the D&D Beyond or similar VTTs are very useful, and I've never worked with one. So I'm spending some time learning the updates to 5.5. That's not a big deal, but getting into having the resources in place and learning how the VTT works with D&D Beyond, because it's very new. And so much of their stuff is like baked into it, or vice versa. It's baked into so much of their stuff. We're kind of trying that out because especially my kids want to do a campaign with their cousins who are in Texas, and so they'll have to do it online. And so that needs to be smooth, and I need to know how to do it. And I've been out of the, excuse the pun, I've been out of the game for a little while, and need to get back in. We had a group in Texas that played just before we moved to Nicaragua, but that's been a while. We'll see how long. We'll see how long I can do this, is what I was trying to say. Were your kids born here or in the U.S.? My one was born in New York and the other in Texas. But they first moved here when they were, we just said this the other night, when they were 6 and 3. So they were very, very young when they first came to Nicaragua. We didn't live here permanently at that time, but we had already lived outside the U.S. for some time. We left the U.S. when they were 5 and 2 and moved to Spain. And then moved to Nicaragua pretty quickly after Spain, and then we're gone for a little while, and then back again to visit, and that's when we made the decision to make the permanent move, and then just the logistics of actually moving. So we tried out a number of places. We didn't come to Nicaragua blind. We didn't pick it as our only place that we tried. We tried several places, and I think we did a really good job of picking places because we were in a lot of places that we absolutely loved. Found incredible regions within those countries. Like my kids would love to spend time in the towns we used to live in. In some cases, they're like, "Can we go get the house we used to have again?" Right? They loved some of the places that we lived. We really had some stellar experiences of living outside our home country. So when we picked Nicaragua, we did so with quite a lot of information and experience under our belt, and feel really good about where we decided to be. Certainly when we first moved here, when the kids were very little, we moved to Grenada, and that was not right for us, but Nicaragua was. 97420 Empire 3 says the rules are fine, but the supplements are not good. Is that for which thing? Sorry. Diego says, hey, love the Orville, by the way. Finished the entire thing in 3 days. I need more. We all do. I'm really hoping a fourth season is coming soon. Edwin says, meanwhile, La Choreca Fires are to be an endless problem as always. Or is that the fires from the dry? I need an endless supply of hot tea just to kind of keep. And I've been playing D&D like this for 2 days, and I'm like, oh, we just do a little bit right now. We don't get much time to play until pretty late at night. And so we do like one dungeon and just like, okay, that's cool. Because by the time my kids don't like to do things until very late at night. And so I'm already getting tired when they're like ready to do stuff, and it's like a tough overlap. But we're hoping to get pretty soon a game. I don't know if it'll be D&D or Pathfinder or Daggerheart. I'm ordering maybe tonight the Daggerheart materials just because I really want that. And my dad is getting my kids Mothership, which looks fantastic. We're gonna try some of those out, but we got to ship those in. But I have D&D and Pathfinder, and right now, I mean, any of them is fine, right? It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, I can't believe you picked that. That's no fun. No, they're all fun. I have nearly all the materials for original D&D, which is what I started on. I have nothing for AD&D. I never played AD&D, ever. Played AD&D second extensively. Really liked third. And 3.5, the whole OSR world was really, really good. And I have quite a bit. I did some, I never ran fourth. I played in fourth, which was okay. And then fifth, I've actually done more. Like, I feel like, boy, I've never really played fifth. No, I actually have a bit. It's been around for so long, and I just forget. I don't know, I'm getting old. I'm fine with fifth. It's not my favorite. I don't like how Wizards is handling a lot of it. They seem to be falling apart all over the place, but so much of the industry is popping up. Like, them falling apart is giving so many opportunities for 13th Age, for Pathfinder, for Daggerheart, for all these alternatives that seem pretty good. Golemanwood or whatever it is looks amazing. So I'm trying out a few different things and seeing if what we want to do. But the reality is I play with my kids, and I'd like to have a group. And my wife likes to play. Like, it's not like everybody in my ecosystem likes to play. Even Alan is interested in, he lives across town. Alan is interested in giving it a shot, right? And so we have people here locally. So I'd like to have a local group, but I want to have a group with my kids and their cousins so we can have like a family thing. It really is such a great way to live in the tropics, right? For those who don't play, I mean, if it's not your thing, it's not your thing. But there's something about living in a place like Nicaragua where life is just easier, and bringing this so incredibly non-Nicaraguan artifact of life here and then experiencing it. And it's like, well, if I was going to play D&D anywhere, like if my hobby was going to be D&D or something akin to it, where would be the perfect place to do it? Well, other than the effort of shipping the books down, which you don't need, you can do digital. Nicaragua is kind of like the perfect place to do it, right? Because it's safe, it's cheap, life is more relaxed. It's just, as an expat, or now as an immigrant, living in paradise and bringing this whole like so out of place culture and being like, okay, let's add some cans of Tonya to this mix, and suddenly it's like, this is like D&D that I had all throughout my life in the United States, but now it's in paradise. Like, this just ramps up the awesome so much. Like, what a great combination of things. My kids are definitely like, we need to find a spot so we can build a D&D room. Like, they're serious about it. Like, they like this stuff. They want to get one of the big tables with either a projector or the glass top with the under however you do it, right? They want to get a gaming table with projection capability. They want to have a room that's dedicated to D&D, where you've got the dim lights and the surround sound, not surround sound, but like ambient sounds, because one of the fun things is like getting into it, right? And currently we play in a room that's set up for video games and movies, and we just kind of makeshift, and it's fine. You can play D&D anywhere. You can play on at your computer or whatever. But there's something really awesome about getting together in the evening, dimming the lights, cranking up the AC when you live in the tropics, grabbing a whole bunch of Mountain Dew or otherwise highly caffeinated soda, getting a bunch of chips and dips. That's actually the number one problem with D&D here, is getting French onion dip, and going into a big comfy room with dim lights and the sound of a tavern and creepy music from the forest and some lighting or whatever to give mood, and you know, make it a little bit dark so everybody's like into it and able to really, you know, focus on the game and not have to worry about everything on the outside. What a cool combination of things. So my kids are really into it, and they are hoping that at some point we can build a room like that. And one of the things that would be neat is it's such an activity that's so perfect for a room that doesn't have outdoor windows. So it's the kind of thing you could put into a middle of a house, because here one of the challenges is you always want to be in these outdoor areas or outer areas, so you have more airflow. But this is the kind of thing you actually could put into the space that you normally kind of write off and are like, that's got to be a closet because it doesn't have any windows and it just up against other things. No, for this, it's actually kind of perfect. As long as you got an AC inverter up on the roof, you have a room that's just chill in that one room. And what did I say? You've got an air conditioning unit that's just chilling that one room, and you can put, you know, fake windows on the wall and like decorate it all up like you know, a ride at Disney World or something. But it's just a room. Doesn't need to move. Doesn't need to do anything. But I love now, like, so when I used to play, which was mostly in the 90s. I got started in the 80s, late 80s, all through the 90s. And then a bunch of time I didn't get to play in the 2000s. So very, very busy with work. And then early 2010s started playing again. So I had a group that I used to play with regularly when my eldest was tiny. So she remembers the group, or like it was influenced by, we had a group of like 6 players, 6 or 7 people that would play all the time. And then they did LARPing and stuff. I didn't, but they did it. So my kids went and checked out LARPing in person and did some of that stuff. So they have this like deep ingrained feelings about it. But when I was playing when I was young, I didn't know anyone who had miniatures. I didn't know anyone who had printed maps. I didn't know any of that stuff. We were theater of the mind and dice. That was it. We had no resources. Everyone I knew was poor. Getting to a store to buy the stuff was hard. Crazy Igor's in Rochester was an hour away, and everything was super expensive. And that was it, right? Like everything was difficult, and just having a couple books, that was what you got. Now being able to be like, okay, so I'm about to order a few hundred miniatures because we're going to get a few hundred miniatures. I'm going to set my kids to painting them. We're ordering in a bunch of dice. We have a couple different game systems. I want to get a table. That's not in the cards right now, but at some point I want to get one of those tables or something that we can use in that way. And I've got some ideas. Maybe we'll do something sooner than later. You know, they've got these cool apps. A lot of the stuff is free or nearly free, where you like, I love it. You just hit a button and it's like tavern sounds. And it's just the clinking, clanking of things and the murmur of voices in the background. But it's like, oh, the silence is a problem and random music is a problem. But this actually works. So it's really exciting for me getting back in and having all these like resources and things that we didn't have before, digital maps or whatever, the automatic transition between different, like, oh, you're just in a tavern, oh, a brawl breaks out, hit a button and the sound turns to brawling sound. Like, that's so cool, right? And I just last night really, so this is how new it is, using D&D Beyond, we just jumped into being able to do like the my kids finally get the maps working on their iPads, so they're like, oh, we can move our own characters and show you where. Oh my gosh, this is so easy, right? So we're in that, like, at first I was putting it on a TV and moving it around with a remote and being like, okay, here's where you are, and that's cool. Now they've got maps on their iPads and they're able to control where they want to go and show me, and now I'm able to like select things and do, okay, we're going into combat now, and it just works, and it helps with rolls, and it shows the rolls on the screen so we know what's going on. And it's like, oh my gosh, this really is making this so much easier as I learn these tools. So that's a lot of fun for me and for the kids, to be exploring how to make it easier. And you know, for me, one of the problems is I haven't DM'd in forever. So there's so many, especially with new systems, like we're not playing anything that I've ever DM'd to any great degree. So jumping in and being like, okay, how do you do this role? How do you do that role? What is the rule for this? Oh, it's this simple. Like, a lot of things are way simpler now, but if you're not used to them, you're not used to them, right? So that's a big thing for me to get used to. But we are pretty quickly, and it's getting much smoother. So I'm hoping very soon that we're going to be able to get into like a real game. We're kind of just doing like starter box sets again, things that are designed to introduce everyone to the different mechanics as we get used to 5.5. Diego says the Fiat exposure I had to D&D of my life was Stranger Things. Haha. Oh, I think he meant first. First exposure I had to D&D in my life was Stranger Things. Wanted to try it ever since. Oh, he said first. There we go. Yeah, D&D's fun. Diego, you should come out and play with us. That would be awesome. You'd really enjoy it. And the D&D that they do in Stranger Things is awful, right? I mean, it's not, but it is. It's so they're playing the one set that I never played, AD&D, the second version. So Dungeons and Dragons was the original 1974. AD&D was roughly 1980, and it made it until like 88, and then they did AD&D second edition, which cleaned up a lot of the rules. AD&D, the one that I never played, but the one that they show in Stranger Things, is the most brutal. It's the least storytelling, most based around just combat. And so I never found it interesting. I don't think many people did. But some people are just really into the combat portions of it. And so that is a for people who like just the combat, it's fun, right? People who like just dungeon grinding, that's kind of its things. But the storytelling and the things that make AD&D or D&D, shows how old I am. In my head, it's always AD&D. Interesting is really the storytelling, the adventure, the stuff, and I like the storytelling stuff. I like that deep. And second edition got way more into that. Third got way more into that. And they also sped things up. Less time focused on mechanics and whatever, and far less on all the numbers. Sorry, I'm dealing with somebody needs something right at the moment. I have a feeling Marcel is here because I hear coughing in the other room. So for me, it's changed so much. I just noticed that Luke says, "You're bagging on my youth, dude. AD&D was the bomb." But so anyway, I was saying, so the one in Stranger Things is AD&D. That's what they're showing. I don't like the style that they do this dungeon grinding thing, more like the Bard's Tale for those who know video games. Like, it's cool and all, but there's so little story and so much just this mechanics of the game. I think for Diego, like a lot of the stuff that you'll see now, whether it's the OSR that was mentioned or 5th edition or Pathfinder or 13th Age or Daggerheart, there's so many improvements on the style, on the vibe, on the mechanics, just so many things that it's so much better than what they're showing. And what they're showing is interesting, but it's come a long way. So we will see. 97 says with Kickstarter, there's all kinds of games these days. That really has. I noticed there's so many places are making their money before it even releases, which it's like, is that really, why does that work? But it does. It does. I don't know. I am ordering Daggerheart tonight because there's only one book. So I decided I'm getting into Daggerheart and giving it a real try before there's a bunch of books and it's like a big investment so that like, once a year you buy one book. That's reasonable, right? So there's one. I'm going to give it a try. But people are just raving about Daggerheart this year, so I really want to try it out. 97 says, stay away from Games Workshop mini war games. They are a money pit. Even in the late 80s, early 90s, when I first got into it, Games Workshop was this money pit, and we knew. No way. I had one Games Workshop mini that my dad forever had on his windowsill. That I got just to have one, but I never got into playing Warhammer, and it never seemed interesting really anyway. The whole idea of like large scale military combat is fun, and from like I could play that or chess kind of perspective, that's fun, but from a role-playing storytelling perspective, it's a completely different animal. Like, it's not interesting to me, so I never found Warhammer to be something that was calling me, whereas D&D and all these others are so. I want to know the story. I want to know the history of Faerun. I want to know, what's going on in Waterdeep. I want to know if the Lord of Daggerfall has held on to his throne. I want to know what's going on in Shadowdale. I want to know, the evil wizard that has been. Up at Baldur's Gate, right? Is he still there? And what's going on? What's his story? What motivates him, right? I love getting into the places, right? And and the living adventures. The best I ever played was Shadowrun around 1992, 1993. My, of all people, Spanish teacher found out about how much we liked playing D&D or similar things, and so she's like, "Oh, I'll have my son run a game for you." Her son basically worked at Wizards of the Coast and was a game writer, and that was his thing. He was a full-time game writer. So my early like real experiences where I wasn't the GM was all with a professional from one of the studios, and he would come down every week and run this huge group that we had, and it was so good. And everything was custom. He had custom rules, custom world, and it was fantastic. It was so in depth, and he was able to just change the game on the fly, and we would throw things at him. We were so creative and off the wall and outside the box, and he would just be like, "What are you doing?" Because like we went on an adventure. This is my favorite story of role playing. We were supposed to sneak into. Imagine being told this. Okay, so your mission is sneak into this building and steal this piece of paper, and have no one find out. Right? So super stealthy, don't leave any prints, let no one know you were in there, no one ever knows there's something to look for, right? Okay, pretty straightforward. We get in, and we're like, what's the best way to hide stealing a piece of paper? Torch the building. And he's just like, oh my gosh, no. And we're like, okay, so there's a semi, because it was in a warehouse, so there's a semi in here and a whole bunch of stuff we want. So we're going to load up all the stuff we want into the semi. We're going to hotwire the semi, and we are going to crash through the gates and set the place on fire so that it looks like we were stealing stuff, and the whole place burns, and there's no way to know that this piece of paper disappeared. And he's like, that's so ridiculous. We're like, but it would work. He's like, they would definitely not figure out that you stole that piece of paper. We're like, yes. We like armed our whole, we got like so much stuff and so much money, and He's like, that okay. Like, we really played it out and really ran the scenario, and he took it really seriously. And it was so much fun because we were able to be like, what would we do? What would run through our minds? Like, we were a bunch of criminals in the game. So it was like, why would we just steal a piece of paper? This is way better. Not only does it meet the requirements of completely hiding this stolen piece of paper, but because it had like a code or some secret on it, it was someone wanted to blackmail someone or something. We're like, but we're getting paid and we're successfully completing the mission that our job is, but we're also getting a semi and it's loaded up with things we want. And it's really, why wouldn't you do that? And he's like, all right. My dad says, would a live stream of you guys playing D&D be entertaining? Honestly, I think it would, especially especially if I get to play and I'm not the DM. If we get a good DM, but even with me DMing, I think it could be. I really want to do that. Convincing the kids to do that is a little bit tough, but I think it'd be fantastic. And it's a really popular thing. People playing D&D live is huge. The Daggerheart team, that's where they came from. They do a show called Critical Role, and they've been going for years. And they have a huge viewership. Of course, everyone in Critical Role is a major Hollywood star doing it, but those are really popular shows with tons of viewership, and they're not too expensive to produce because they're just playing D&D. Like, yeah, they got a little bit of production value, but for the most part, they're just... 97 says, grim dark RP is not my thing. I like more classic stuff. Yeah, I don't like the super dark. We played Curse of Strahd. I find that in general, horror role-playing or horror-esque role-playing or Call of Cthulhu, anything like that, I tend to find nonsensical and just boring because it's like... I really like the Forgotten Realms, but I think the balance is off. But I like the general vibe of Forgotten Realms because it's like, here's a happy town. Here's a bunch of farmers. Oh no, a goblin. Goblins like make sense, right? They're basically related to other humanoids. They eat basically the same kind of foods. They live in basically the same kind of weather. They make sense in the ecology. Whereas, and now we found a horde of 20 dragons who live in a desert. Well, what do they eat? They must need a lot of food to keep those things going. Where do they get... and then dragons are like a source of eternal power, right? You can just chain up a dragon and it'll breathe fire and you can heat, boilers and produce electricity for all eternity because dragons live forever and need no food. That doesn't make any sense, right? You start breaking physics. And it's like, you don't need to produce food for certain things. You don't need water sources. You don't need whatever. And the reality is if you had a bunch of dragons in one spot, there would be a lot of dragon poop to deal with, right? That would be a major problem that people don't think about. And so I like places that make sense. I like games where it's reasonable, right? If you're going to have dwarves live underground, they have to be growing food somehow. They can't just be, magically living off the rocks. And most horror games, I find that's where they get a lot of their horrors from not making any sense. And I don't find that scary. I find that boring, right? I feel it's phoned in kind of thing. So I very rarely find anything in a horror genre very interesting. But what I'm really excited about, and I've heard amazing things about Mothership, which my father got for my kids, and they're really looking forward to playing it. I got to order that tonight. Is that it's basically like the Alien movies, Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, and so forth, in that you have combined with the Expanse, right? So you're like a crew who is sent out to investigate ships that have gone dark or colonies that are under attack or something. And you have this like high suspense sci-fi aliens hunting you vibe thing that sounds like they did some amazing stuff with it. So I'm really interested because people who play a lot say that they kind of have a breakthrough in how well they're able to present suspense in a tabletop game, which is pretty cool because that's one of the challenges is tabletop games are so good for storytelling, but when you jump into trying to build suspense or horror or fear, well, how do you get afraid of a tabletop game? It's really hard. That's where playing in dim light playing with very, very careful mood setting and those kinds of things are important, but having a game that's actually able to build suspense where you're drawn into the story and you know, Ginny D even talks about like jump scares in the game and stuff like it. Really interesting. So super looking forward to that. On top of it, looks like they have done an amazing job with artwork and just the and one of the things that I think a lot of people get into with TTRPGs is the artistry of the system, right? TTRPGs are about collaborative literature and artistic systems in a way that a lot of places don't have. And so there's a lot of outlets for doing a lot of creative stuff in TTRPGs that are really exciting. Janice says, I have to go to class now. I'll keep this on, though. Diego says, I was pretty into job interview with Wizards of the Coast. I'm sure I wasn't hired because I had no idea what the games are about. That's really funny. They needed you because their system kind of sucks. Diego says, I'm okay being live streamed. I don't know if a noob would be interesting, though. Actually, I think that's I think that is a fun thing, right? Here's people who've, like Alan. Alan's never played D&D. He's not really sure what it is, but he's interested in giving it a try. And my kids have only played a little bit. They have enough to like help people, and they understand a bit of the like storytelling vibe. And my wife's the same. But getting a group where there's a lot of new people kind of trying it out and being like, okay, there's a fun in their discovery. And I think there's a need for, especially now, because there's so many people getting into D&D. It's the all-time biggest funnel period in history. There is a big opportunity for people to be like, here's someone else learning how to play. Learn along with them, right? Watch their journey happen. I think that'd be really cool. I would love to go back and get a small group, 3 or 4 people, who want to regularly run on either live or recorded. Like, it doesn't have to be live. Recorded is fine. Adventures where we go back and play the original D&D adventures. We're talking 1970s pamphlets. A lot of them are just ridiculously bad, but just play them all. Just do them all. It'll be really interesting. And actually, I can show you. I have so many of them. I'm just going to show you guys some. Let me see if I can bring this up. Hopefully this works. I gotta change what window I'm showing. Boom. All right, that's our Freehold cloud storage system. Dungeons and Dragons Classic. These are my personal files, so not work things. Oh, let me take these into trading cards. Hopefully this works. Oh, they're way too slow. That's annoying. All right, we're going to come back. Oh, there we go. These are many of the original Dungeons and Dragons game modules. And you can see, like, there's so many. Each one of these, nearly each one, represents an adventure in the original 1970s game world. Some of these, like this one, is actually the rule set, but the ones that look like this are all individual adventures. And here this is actually the one that my kids are playing right now. They're playing a modern, updated version of it. So just click on that. And it's actually bringing up the game itself. Hopefully. It's pulling these remotely, so it does take a second, even when it's working. Anyway. Job interviews. HLoss0213. Hey, Scott, great content. I'm a Nicaraguan living in Houston, Texas, and I'm going to visit for the first time in 10 years. I'm so excited, and I'm very happy to know you've made my country your home. Well, thank you so much. I actually, my wife's family all lives in Houston as well. So we're there, or have been traditionally, on a regular basis. Luke says the dragons incinerate their own guano. Okay, yep. Why is this taking so long? What is going on? We'll try a different one. Well, that's disappointing. Normally those come up pretty quickly. Traveler is okay if you want to do sci-fi. I don't normally want to do sci-fi. It just really looked good. I kind of want to try out... I can't think of its name. Pathfinder, is it Starfinder? Whatever, the one that Pathfinder makes. Okay, these PDFs are not loading. They're just being really slow tonight. I don't know. Sorry to change your topic, but we were just in Las Bonitas, and I was so disappointed to see Desperados was closed. What have you heard? What have I heard? Well, Ron, being that it's my restaurant, I'm generally aware of what's going on. Desperados has closed. It is the restaurant has closed. There's just so little market for it. It's very sad because we loved having it. We had 2 restaurants on the beach, and the Simple closed first as a restaurant, and then Desperados. But the market demand for high-end steaks and salmon and everything was just not high enough to be able to keep one cook and one waiter employed with all of the food that you have to keep stocked and everything. Just the cost of it was so high, and the amount of space that was needed and everything. And really, people don't like having nice dinner on the beach. I know that sounds crazy when you just say it, but when you actually live there and you experience it, because Desperados is sand front, right? Touches the sand. What you end up with is a very dark space at night. Dinner, when you want a nice dinner, right? So those who don't know, Desperados was a very high-end steakhouse, definitely the highest end in Western Nicaragua, right? Or competing with that place in Chinandega. And so things were quite expensive. Food took a while, right? We had the only Argentinian grill in the region, the only Argentinian smoker in the region, the only place doing a wide variety of salmon dishes and so forth. So there was some stuff that was unique, and it was good. We had good reviews. People liked it. My kids loved eating there. I loved eating there. Like, that stuff wasn't a problem. But that type of food is dinner, right? Are you going there for breakfast? No, we weren't even open. Would you do that for lunch? No, like never. People would not go there for lunch. And so it was really a dinner place. Well, dinner's normally after the sunset. During the sunset, people love to go there, have a beer, watch the sun go down. It was beautiful. Right here on the water, sun goes down. Once the sun's gone down, that's just darkness. And the ocean goes from being beautiful to creepy pretty quickly. And suddenly you're sitting out on a dark space that's not at all interesting because there's no twinkling lights out there. It's not like a bay where you're looking across the bay or something. It's not like in Europe where there's, it's a sea. This is the deep ocean. So it is really dark. The waves are intense. And there's nothing out there. It actually has a little bit of panic feeling to it. Not a lot of people actually like to live directly on the ocean, believe it or not. And so, especially when you go to sleep at night. During the day, it's like, this is amazing. But once the sun goes down, you're like, it's not so amazing. But most people aren't putting, their finger on it. So if you notice on the beaches, all of the beach restaurants have moved away from the beach. All the successful ones are not on the beach, and there are very few successful ones, and they're all successful only because the owners are working there and the owners are getting a salary from it, not profits. So having a place that was directly on the ocean actually made it this beautiful location where people wanted the food but didn't want to be there at the time that they would want the food. It was just a bad combination of things. And so, it did finally open up. I don't know why. It just took a little bit, so we're going to just jump back. So this is the one that my kids are playing, Dungeon Module B2, the Keep on the Borderlands. But again, this is the original Dungeons and Dragons from, let's see, this one says 1981, probably is this particular reprint. But I bet the original was probably 77 or so. But anyway, there's a brand new reprint of this module that my kids are playing for D&D 5th edition, which is many since then. This is the old hand-drawn map from the original. My kids went through, is it all there? They went through a dungeon here, and they did G last night. They did one over here the other night. It's changed slightly, but basically there. I'm trying to figure out how this... Oh, interesting. Okay. But these are the old ones, right? This is what they look like back in the day. Little diagrams. Is that a kobold she's shaking the money out of? I can't tell. See if I can find like a real area. All right, here we go. Oh yeah, they were in the Castellan's chambers just 2 nights ago. This portion of the fortress is 10 feet above the main roof and has battlements. Inside the private room of a commander of the whole keep, it is lavishly furnished with a silver mirror worth 300 gold pieces on the wall. Malachite bowl worth 750 gold pieces. Wow, that's a lot. On a table, and a fox robe worth 1,200 gold pieces in his armoire. He has a small silver case worth 450 gold pieces, which contains 40 platinum pieces and 12 gems. Wow, you could rob this place and make a ton of money. None of this is in the new remake. Like, none of that. That's a whole bunch of color that those old ones have. But the old ones are so much about money and points, and the new ones really aren't. And yes, 9-7 just had big blocks of text. That's exactly how they were. I was just watching Quest Beast commentary on Goodman Games and how they make modern games with these big blocks of text just like this. And he's like, this is unusable. I cannot. And some people are like, that's the whole point, is to be nostalgic. And he's like, be nostalgic for a good game. Don't be nostalgic for bad publishing. It was interesting. So some of these, though, I think going back and going through this library that I have of just every possible D&D 1970s and 1980s game would be so cool to do as a show. Like, get some people together and do not necessarily a live stream, but do an edited, so to keep the pacing better, show and go through the history of these old ones, and like Temple of the Frog. You know, that's gonna be a good one. And I have all the Gazetteers. Several of these, like this one, obviously everyone had this. When I got way back into D&D, or got into original D&D when I was first getting into it, the Grand Duchy of Karamikos came out not long after I started playing, and the Gazetteers were really well done, and there's so much great Gazetteer material. These are like regional storytelling guides for parts of Mystara, and then Hollow World is an extension of that. Like, this would be really fun. Ooh, why'd this one not load? Oh, there's a problem there. All right. Maybe I don't have that one. These are some of the really old ones. The Blackmore supplement. I know you guys are jealous of my collection now. Some of you are drooling over all the games you could be playing. Diego says, even dragon provided energy. Comes down to boiling water. Everything is boiling or moving water. 9-7 says sci-fi. And noobs are fun. They are fun. People who've played for a long time can be good, but noobs are often like, there's just much more excitement. Some of the old Dragon magazine stuff is good. Oh, I used to get both Dragon and Dungeon magazine subscriptions for years. I love those. They were so good. Diego says, I really wanted that job. I never really had the opportunity to work in a system used by millions. I've always worked at startups or small companies. Oh, that's true. I guess a lot of people, I wonder how many people really use D&D Beyond. It doesn't feel like a lot. It's so janky. And I'm sure a lot of people actually use it. It does not feel like a lot of people use it. Trust me. It's rough. 9-7 says, I have the first B1 Homes box. Oh, wow. Nice. Diego says, the most concurrent users I've needed to handle is around 70,000. That's a lot of concurrent users. I don't think D&D Beyond has 70,000 concurrent users. Maybe they do. Does not seem likely. Luke says, Keep of the Borderlands played the first time in 1981. Having flashbacks of my childhood reviewing those modules. Expossessed says, I hope you're feeling better. Thumbs up. Oh, thank you. Reminder, everyone, give a thumbs up. It does help. Diego says, I'd love to have a nice dinner on the beach. Seems romantic for a day. It does seem romantic, Diego. That's why people, when you say it, it's unbelievably romantic. And then the reality of sitting in a restaurant where you have light from the restaurant and darkness at the ocean is not romantic. That is not what it is. It's the opposite of romantic in reality. What you're picturing is late afternoon drinks on the beach. That's romantic. But actually being on the beach, if you were in Barcelona and you have the French Riviera twinkling out there, or cruise ships sitting out there twinkling, those are romantic. If you're in San Juan del Sur and you're looking across from Tuanis towards the other side, towards the statue, that's romantic, right? Because you're looking at something across the bay. cities across water is incredibly romantic, but open ocean, once it's dark, not romantic. And the reality is, if you go live like I did in Crete, right, island in the Mediterranean, the restaurants aren't on the water. That's not where they are. Beaches are on the water. The restaurants are in from the beach on the other side of the road. They pull them back and they make the restaurants romantic, and they put twinkle lights, and once it's nighttime, they shut everything against the water off. They bring down plastic barriers and stuff and bring you in, because the water isn't romantic. And in fact, it's a little bit scary. And it just, I'm not saying that people were like scared. It just has that like, ooh, I'm uncomfortable, right? There's this open space that goes on forever right there. It's just, it isn't the romantic place that you're thinking of. Because, so I've done dinner on Santorini, right? Sunset while you're having dinner and you can see the island. But when the sun goes down, one, it's barely still romantic, and two, you're not on the water. You feel like you are, but then you realize you're high on the hill and you have tons of the town below you, and there's other islands as part of the chain are right there, so you're looking at them and you can see their villages twinkling. That's romantic. That's amazing. That's why Santorini is in such demand. But you go down to Crete and you're just looking out into the empty Mediterranean, and it's like, oh no, I'll go into town. And then it's the cute little old, 800-year-old stone streets that are so narrow, and they have like actual flickering lights and soft twinkles, and you duck into little tiny bistros and tavernas, and that's romantic, not the dark ocean. Supply versus demand, 97 says, and you can't light up beaches with turtle nest. Exactly. Yeah, there's no way to use lights out there without causing damage, and so it's pure darkness. And the salt air is rough on everything. HLoss0213 says, I'm going to be in Nicaragua from February 27th to March 8th. I'm originally from Granada, but I've never explored Leon before. What would you recommend doing in Leon? Obviously you got to walk around a little bit. We're like Granada. We got the old buildings, but a completely different style. We're Andalusian instead of, no, I'm sorry. What am I saying? Granada's Andalusian, obviously. I lived in Granada, España, right? So that's Andalusian. Leon is Extremadura, northwestern, very close to Galicia in Spain, and that's the style that's copied here. That's why they have the name. And so walking around and seeing some of that style downtown is important. The main plaza is a big deal. The cathedral, obviously, is a big deal. You have to go see that. I recommend coming out to Sutiava and just seeing a little bit of the indigenous community, because that's the old city, older than Leon here. And go out to the beach. Las Penitas is one of the really cool beaches of the country, worth going out and checking out for a little bit. Obviously, you can't eat at Desperados, which is very sad, because we had to close it. There is a number of good museums here. The Museum of the Revolution here is supposed to be very, very good. The Art Museum in Leon is the best in Central America and the largest, so definitely we have a Picasso. That's worth checking out. We're not a tourist town, so the number of things to do is very, very small. We're a place that's great to live, but definitely not a tourist town. Nearby, of course, you can go volcano boarding, you can go surfing, you can check out the estuary at Juan Venado. Climbing the fortress takes a bit of time, but that's really cool. You can drive most of the way up, and seeing the spot where the U.S. Marines evacuated as the fall of the American colony here happened was right in Leon, overlooking the city. That's a pretty cool spot to go check out. The remains of Leon Viejo can be pretty interesting. I like that if you're into like serious history stuff. And that takes you to the shores of the lake, going to check out Xochitlan from the north side, from the port where it used to be known as Lago Leon, is pretty cool. Those are the big things, I would say. Other than just exploring town, hitting restaurants, going out for some nightlife, go see some live music. That's really the Leon thing, more than anything. 97 says, experience used to equal gold pieces plus loot. That is, yeah. Well, plus other things. But yeah, your loot was part of your experience. So they were, yeah, that was dumb, like really dumb. That really shows a heritage more connected to like hack and slash video games than to role playing. I'm so glad that we've left that behind. And now it's really common to do checkpoint-based advancement, which is what I'm doing with my kids now. I don't know if I'm ever going to use experience points again. Oh my gosh, yeah, Luke. Avalon Hill, I forgot about them. And Chaosium were the best competitors. Chaosium just got the D&D 5th edition lead like 9-10 months ago. For those who don't know, Chaosium is the publisher of Call of Cthulhu. They just got him, and he's working on a D&D competitor over there. So that's all of the main leads of D&D 4th and 5th edition have left Wizards of the Coast. One of them went to Chaosium, and two of them went to what the heck's their name? The ones who make Daggerheart. It's like Darlington Press, I think. Expossess says, Diego, in my opinion, small companies tend to let you do more than large companies. Oh, definitely, that's true. Yeah, Hasbro, owned by Vanguard and BlackRock. Yeah, actually. It's everybody is fleeing Wizards of the Coast. They lost all their main people. Their tech is the worst. They're improving, I have to say. They have moved a little bit in the right direction, but they went from being the entire industry to being crushed by Pathfinder in 2014. So Diego says, that's true. I always do a lot and I make tons of decisions, but I don't know. I believe that working in a system that needs to be highly resilient and scalable like Netflix and Figma would be fun. Well, I think that you may be surprised by how non-scalable. I'm just guessing, right? But as someone who builds systems like this, the stuff at Wizards of the Coast is not at all scalable. Or it is, but not in a way you'd find interesting at all. They're able to deploy most of their stuff to really basic front-end caches. It's a lot of like, they're not PDFs, but they're basically hosting large-scale PDFs. They may not even run any of that infrastructure. It's very much commodity stuff that they can just do any which way without any real technology. And the things that they are running on their own, like the VTT, is so simplistic and such a tiny scale. All of their systems are like 5 users max. And so it's so easy to build a system that only 5 users use. Like we could whip that up in an afternoon or maybe on a weekend, right? We could basically rebuild their technology in a weekend, and that would be it. And you'd be like, oh, that's all there is to it? Yeah, that's probably all there is to it. Because they don't have like some big ongoing transaction system. They don't have things that are fast. They don't need to, right? I'm not saying that it's bad. I'm just saying that they don't have that many users doing that much stuff. And when they do, it's so easy to splinter it off that it's nothing much. I just got to grab someone a credit card here. I'm not sure where it is. That was fast. I do know where it is. Okay. That was it. Sorry to have to do that. Diego says, wait, we have a Picasso for real? First time I've heard there was even an art museum in Leon. Yes, the Leon Art Museum is actually owned by the house that I live in. This is the house that built that museum. And adio. And it's the most prominent art museum in not just in Nicaragua, in all of Central America. Like, there's nothing to compete with it, even in Panama, let alone Costa Rica, Guatemala, anything like that. So yeah, no, it's huge, and it's blocks and blocks of the city, and they're expanding. Since I've been here, they took over another half a block. They have the buildings themselves that the museum is in are art pieces. They're old mansions of Leon, beautifully restored and connected together. So you wander through architectural museums to see the art museums. And there's spots where you have to cross the road, and there's guards, like museum guards, stand outside, and you walk out of one museum door and they guide you across the street into the other door, and the guard on the other side is like, come on in. And so you just go from one part of the museum to another, crossing the road. It's really, I've never been to any museum in the world that does that. And there's multiple roads that you have to cross because the museum is so large. It's very, very cool. It's got some huge pieces in it. It has some beautiful courtyards. Some of the best houses in Nicaragua are the museum houses. So well worth checking out. Such a thing that you don't want to skip that in Leon. It's too much. It's too big of a thing to not do. HLS says, thanks. Do you prefer Las Penitas or San Juan del Sur? Las Penitas for sure. That's why we moved here, right? We came and looked at San Juan del Sur, and my business partner gave it 3 hours. He was there for 3 hours and said, I want to leave. I don't ever want to see this town again. And he hasn't. He hasn't returned in any way whatsoever. Absolutely hated it. It's San Juan del Sur really isn't Nicaragua. Like, it's owned by Nicaragua, but in the same way that Disney World isn't really the United States. You can like Disney World and you can like the United States, but they aren't the same thing. You have to like them independently, right? It's okay to like San Juan del Sur and it's okay to like Nicaragua, but liking one doesn't imply you'll like the other. Same with Disney and the United States. You could like one and hate the other in either direction, or like both or hate both. They're just independent. San Juan del Sur doesn't feel anything like Nicaragua and doesn't come with any of the benefits we like of Nicaragua. It's not safe like Nicaragua. It doesn't have the culture of Nicaragua. It doesn't have the cost of Nicaragua. It doesn't have anything Nicaraguan to it. It's interesting, and I've spent some time there and really liked it, but the longer I'm here, the less I like it. And it's Las Penitas is the place I want to be in Nicaragua the most, and San Juan del Sur is the place I want to be in Nicaragua the least. So they're not in competition with each other. They are the polar opposites. Now, there's lots of people that only want to be in San Juan del Sur because they don't like Nicaragua, but they like what San Juan del Sur has to offer. That's fine, but that's a very different thing. 97 says, I love RuneQuest and Glorantha. I've never played Glorantha. RuneQuest, but long ago. I can't remember when. Roger says, if it stayed light till 9 p.m., it would have been totally different. Oh, does he mean on the beaches? That is true. Here we get dark at 6, right? We're in the tropics, 6 to 6. You get 12 hours. And so in like Europe, you sometimes get, like, especially in Norway, you have light at 10 o'clock at night. And you can have dinner with this dwindling light for a long time. And that can make, along with much of Europe, and I mean a lot of Europe, has views across the water wherever you go. Some of my favorite spots in Ireland, for example, you can go to a pub over here and there's a city right there, and all of it is looking at each other, or it may be the ocean, but they have like craggy little things, so everybody's looking at other things. You could look out in the darkness, but you always have twinkling lights and these beautiful spots to look at. So one of the things I love about Europe is its craggy coastline everywhere and little islands everywhere, right? You're always looking at something, and that's just a physical awesome aspect of life there. And even like you're in Sicily, you can see mainland Italy at times. Like almost everywhere I've lived in Europe, you could always see stuff, right? And mountains everywhere, so you're looking up and down and all over. And in so much of Latin America, obviously not all of it, when you're looking out to the water, it's just straight out, right? And it's just darkness out there because it's just wide open Pacific Ocean rather than basically mostly inland seas as part of the Atlantic coast. Expat says, Diego, you can build your own Netflix clone with Linux, or you can just fire up Jellyfin. Sean Ellis says, hello, sir. My wife and I are planning to move from Canada in 5 years tops and are coming to visit to check out the areas we haven't seen yet. Watch most of your videos. Like to have a conversation. Well, awesome. And most of my videos is a lot of videos. That's awesome. Just shoot me an email. Best way to hook up with me. I don't check it every day, but I try. Luke says, every night, or early night, teré para mi clase de español. Adios, y'all. Have a good night, Luke. Sean says, looking to purchase a house by Laguna de Apoyo. I actually have my friends that I went to Laguna de Apoyo with several months ago are actually just got halfway there minutes ago. They were just messaging me, and they'll be there tomorrow, hanging out. I'm not feeling well. For those who have not noticed, I have a terrible cough. I have bronchitis right now, so I'm taking it easy. Probably not going to go real late tonight. We started on the early side, which is awesome. We'll see how I feel. But I've been hacking up a lung most of the day, so trying to keep that chill a little bit. Laguna de Apoyo is super cool. I love it out there. Diego says, I know I just want the experience to work in a huge system with huge amounts of traffic, solving interesting problems. Most of my career has been maintaining a WordPress and some ding and zaps. Expat says, hey Luke, how you doing? Diego says, and I'm tired of it, but they paid well, so golden handcuffs. My new job is better, maintaining some Next.js and Python systems, but it's a startup, so not tons of users. Diego says, I want to go to Paradiso again. Nice place. Hey, Alan, see, that's the second person that said Paradiso, because Alan is heading there sometime soon, like now, maybe. And he asked me where I stay, and I said at Paradiso, and he's like, oh, a hostel. And that's where my friend Ava goes. That's where Marilyn goes. That's where I go. That's where Saeed goes. That's where Diego goes. Everyone goes to Paradiso. It's like the place. Do they prescribe Robitussin with codeine there for bronchitis? I don't know. I've never gotten, I don't know anyone who's ever gotten a prescription here for cough medicine. It's just not a thing you generally do. You just go buy what you want. So I don't know. And I don't generally use cough medicine, so it's I don't have a lot of, I avoid medicines almost entirely, and I certainly won't take one with codeine because I'm allergic. So that would be let's see. At least my coughs are productive. That's why I don't need any medicine. But it does hurt. But so whatever was everybody got planned for this weekend? You guys have gotten quiet on me. How many people do we have? I haven't looked in quite a while. Not a lot. We have a really small group tonight. Maybe D&D is not the big topic. Or maybe we're on too early. Or maybe I'm just really sick. Hopefully when I get done here going to play taxes, doing taxes this weekend, that sucks. How's the weather in Apoyo compared to Leon? Well, Apoyo is part of Granada. Well, Messiah, really. So Leon is hot, right? We're the outlier. We're out on the coast, so we're super, super, super warm out on the coast. Laguna de Apoyo depends where you are, right? It's a volcano, so if you're at the bottom, it's one thing. If you go up to the ridge, it's another. If you go down into the caldera, it's another. So you get a little bit different. You get a good amount of breeze out there if you're high enough, and it's on some amount of elevation, so it's a bit cooler, right? If you go out to a lot of people talk about Catarina, the observation point out there, the Mirador, that area stays much cooler than here. Of course, prices at Laguna de Apoyo are astronomical compared to most of the country. You can't build out there anymore, I'm told. So what's out there is in very high demand for whatever exists, which is really cool. One of my best friends has a house right at the top of the caldera, so it's really cool to stay out there. I wish I was there this weekend, but just sick and can't make it. But it's nice to go crash out there. But it is very remote, so that keeps it from becoming kind of explosive from a popularity perspective. It's a long drive to get the thing. Sometimes you have to pay to go in because you're at the park or whatever. But it's a very nice area. It's beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, 300,000. Well, Canadian. That's like what, 50,000 American? Just kidding. That feels like it's actually going to be on the low side out there, but maybe you can find some stuff. Everything I've seen, I mean, that's a lot for Nicaragua, but for Laguna de Apoyo is not that much. You'd be surprised the amount of medicines you could get here without prescription. Yeah, it's almost everything. HLS says, Scott, I'm curious, what do you do for work? That's the second time we've been asked on the live stream. I'm asking because I want to know if there's a way to possibly make money in the USA but living in Nicaragua in the future. Well, of course, that's the main thing, right? So everything, like making money in the US and living in Nicaragua is the easiest thing to possibly do. Like it's the ultimate combination. Anything you can do in the US remotely, you can do from Nicaragua, right? And you can do it better from Nicaragua because just everything's easier and our infrastructure is better. So my company is a IT outsourcer and software engineering firm primarily. So we provide IT and customer service resources for companies of all sizes all over the world, and we make our own software. But the sky's really the limit, right? What can you do from Nicaragua? Anything you can do from anywhere, right? So it all comes down to the skill sets you have, what it is that you want to do. The things that are tough, right? How do you do plumbing remotely? How do you be a remote electrician? How do you become a remote carpenter? Obviously, hands-on jobs are very difficult to do remotely. Even those sometimes they do happen, right? Teaching carpentry online or whatever. But those things are very few and far between. But for anything that you're able to do remotely, just picture the entire U.S. job market and think about what can you do that's remote that you can do from Nicaragua, right? And tons of us that are here work in the U.S. or Canada from here, so that's very, very normal. Eid Group says, Scott, you warned us not to look for real estate online. If you're looking for a rental for less than 6 months, what platform should we use for research? There is nothing but Airbnb. Literally nothing. If it's listed somewhere in Nicaragua, they expect 6+ months. Under 6 months, you're really on Airbnb, which we say it all the time. The short-term rental market here in Nicaragua is brutal. There's so little call for it that there's just no good options. Diego says tech or law services is the way to go. Tons of medical, lots of customer service. Lots of accounting, anything that's done in an office. Larry says, couldn't be prouder as a member. I was eating dinner with your new fan, Harlise. How do you say it? I sent you 2 shout outs you ignored. That is tears of joy for her. Shout outs that I ignored. You know, something, Larry, yours specifically very rarely come through. I did respond to an earlier one that you said, but I've only seen those 2. I'm scrolling. Or at least there she is. Yeah, it was just the 2. I can scroll back and see it. Sean says, thank you very much for the information. Expozaz says, stoked to play with my new Blender walking animation in C++ this weekend. Diego says, the hard thing is being Nicaraguan. Most companies will only hire Americans, but if they hire outside the U.S., they only hire from Colombia, Argentina, etc. Sean says, one last question. Once we are there, I would like to buy a Suzuki Jimny. Are they common? Yeah, they're pretty common. I wouldn't say they're super common, but they're normal. My business partner has a Suzuki, and he kind of wishes he had gotten the Jimny. They're so cheap here. My gosh. That's one of the great things here. Cars are half the price of the U.S., I swear. Everybody in the U.S. talking about how expensive their cars are, and we're like, we're buying brand new cars for mid-20s, like from nice cars. Diego says not common, but you can buy them. I feel like they're decently common. I mean, they're not common like a Toyota Corolla, right? They're not one of those cars, but they're one of the ones you see regularly. They're like second tier popular. There's the everybody's got them generic cars, and then there's the next tier. They're just in that next tier. They're not rare in any way. And they work pretty well for here. They're a good, cheap. Is Santo Domingo pretty walkable? No, unless you mean the mall, because that's also the name of the mall. No, it is not at all walkable. I walk it because I'm crazy, but so Santo Domingo. Oh, Let me recatch my air for a second. So Santo Domingo is very, very hilly. And you've got a lot of woods and a lot of walled buildings and stuff. So you end up with quite a bit of distance between things and a lot of elevation change and a lot of winding, twisting roads and no sidewalks. It's not an area. If you spent time there, you would pretty immediately go, oh, no, I wouldn't expect to walk this just because of like terrain. It's very similar to the Heights in Ithaca, New York, where it's just wooded and hilly. And if you were there in New York, you'd go, I wouldn't expect to walk this. I mean, it's beautiful, but it's just not very practical for walking. Santo Domingo gives you that same vibe of just like, oh, I see. No, this is hard. There's not a lot of traffic in most of it, so you generally can walk, but there's also, because of the hills and stuff, there's a lot of spots where the road is barely wide enough for a car, which can make even driving somewhat crazy. It has a very European vibe because of the tight little roads. But so if you're walking, there's some situations where you're like, I might get clipped by a car here. So it tends not to be super, people just don't approach it as walkable. But it's extremely affluent for Nicaragua. It's the Beverly Hills of Nicaragua, so you don't really expect to find people walking unless they're, staff at people's homes walking to work, which there is a lot of. So it does happen. But when I walk around Santo Domingo, I'm always the only person walking around Santo Domingo. It's such a nice area, but that's one. And definitely climbing the hill all the time is like, okay, that's a lot of hill. Sean says, figure if I'm out in the boons, need a 4x4, and I can't afford a Toyota truck. True. Very rarely have I been like, I wish I had more of a truck than I do. It's pretty rare. People say all the time, I've got to have a 4x4 in Nicaragua. But I'd say 90% of people have no real benefit from it. It depends what you want to do, of course. But if I was going to live in Laguna de Apoyo, I certainly wouldn't want a 4x4. You're in the middle of everything. Did the new Chinese Bike Echoes open with the new menu? I believe it did, Larry. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought I saw that the menu was now available. I know they were open a few weeks ago without the menu, just like doing tea and stuff so people could stop in and see it. But I haven't had a chance to stop in yet. It does sound good. I could go for some Chinese. I didn't have dinner yet, so that would be nice. I'm sure they're not delivering. Anybody know their name? We'll just check them out on Peditas Joe. If only we had a name. I was doing all right. I'm starting to have problems breathing. Sorry for being sick on the show. Checking out what restaurants are currently doing delivery. Oh, the interface changes from time to time, and it's like, what am I looking at? Barca's Chickbone. I don't recognize them. I'm not seeing any. Wait, what's Imperosa's Cafe? That's new. I've never seen that before. Do they have anything? Half the time you go to these restaurants and they're like Mexican restaurant, and you open it and all you get is coffee, and you're like, you bothered to put up an entire restaurant with a bunch of stuff and you only serve coffee? What are you doing? So China Express is open, but that's not them. Twins delivers. Went to Twins a few days ago with some of you guys, and it's awesome. If you're in Sutiaba, definitely go eat at Twins. Check them out. They're very, very, very good. Hamburguesas Bendy. I don't think I've seen that one. Oriente Chino Express Leon. I don't recognize that name. Oh, there's a new chicken place called Delight Crunch. What do we got? You go to the Chinese restaurant. I want to show what they have. Oh, that's right. Buffalo wings and crinkle cut French fries. Very, very authentic Chinese. Sean says, hope you get better soon, good sir. Really appreciate the insight. My pleasure, and thank you. I am improving. I think I'll be fine by like Saturday. I just need to make sure I'm getting rest and don't hurt my throat and stuff. And it's and I'm avoiding medicine and stuff, so I tend to heal pretty quickly. Yep, found another spot, and it's all drinks, no food. There's a new place called Dogger Hot. Uy, que rico. It's so hard to find anything that isn't the same things over and over and over again. Diego says, I want some buñuelos. That's what we call our kittens. The ones that are they're on the windowsill right now making noise. We call the three of them the buñuelos because their mother's name is Fritter. I could go for some buñuelos, some good yuca buñuelos. That would not be bad. Comida China Dragon Express. Is that the new one? That might be the new one. Anything look interesting? Fried shrimp. The thing that nothing. The thing that I always want is sweet and sour shrimp, and like nobody sells it. Oh, my dad is heading out. Thanks, Dad. Have a good night. Love you. Yeah, I don't know how long I can keep talking. I'm struggling for... Oh, Chinese Food Leon. Is that the new one? We're looking. The economic combo. Lo mein, chow mein, mixto. They have fried wontons, but of course they're filled with chicken. Even the Chinese restaurants, most of the food is Nicaraguan. Only a small amount is Chinese. Oh, look, this one has sweet and sour pork, but will they do sweet and sour shrimp? No. Nope, none of that for me. Expat says, good night, Dad. Or good night to my dad, I guess. Doesn't call him Dad. He's everyone's dad, though. We're just up on 2 hours. I may be at my limit. I don't want to get into coughing too much. And I don't want to run out of air. But yeah, the Jimneys are nice cars, just in general. They're a fun little practical thing. The 4x4 bit is not nearly as important. You know, even with people who have 4x4s, other than like my friend Elton, who has the coffee farms up in the mountains, he needs a 4x4 because they're big trucks up in deep mud, up in the fields in the mountains. He definitely needs a 4x4. I don't know anyone else who needs a 4x4. I know some people who need truck frames. Sometimes you need a truck frame because you need high clearance and you need to bounce around on rough roads. But 4x4, it's not like you're ever getting stuck. Like I drive an SUV, right? Like I have a large hybrid SUV. Like we're pretty far from a truck frame, and I drive on the stuff where people are like, I gotta have a 4x4, and it's completely fine. Like I would like a little bit more clearance, so that's just it. Wait, you made it this whole time? Well, I have to go to next class anyway. Have fun. So, Janet thought I was going to drop dead after all this. I sent you an email. Hope you can answer it back before March. Well, Tony, we'll try our best, but before March is really asking for quite a bit. We'll see. This show is hard to do when you can't breathe. Diego says, I'm going to TKD and sparring day. Haha. I'd come back and tell you how bad it goes for me. He is off to go to Taekwondo, I think is what he's trying to say. Have fun, Diego. We are definitely not going to be around when you come back. I'll be lucky if I make it much longer. I do need to feed my kids, so there may be a lot of reasons why it's good to not go for a long time. Because I'm I'm definitely feeling pretty rough, and it's a pretty slow week, so that's cool. We've done several lives this week, so we've been doing all right. What about Shi Tian Di and Managua? Marcella really likes them. I think they're just good. They're good, but they're nothing super special. Service is good for sure. I like them. I've only been once or twice. I would certainly go back, but I like what we have here in Leon better. Now keep in mind, I'm not Chinese, so I'm not basing it on its authenticity. I'm basing it off of I prefer American Chinese food, right, which is a different thing. So I wish we had a Panda Express in many cases. And that would be cool. Having a Panda Express type place here in Nicaragua, I think would fail, actually. But there's so many Chinese that live here now that it might take off. And someone's going to say, why would an American Chinese place take off when there's real Chinese? That's an excellent question. The answer is because Panda Express is the fastest growing restaurant in China, because the Chinese love American Chinese food. They know it's not Chinese, but it's still delicious. It's just like how Tex-Mex food isn't Mexican food, but it's still delicious. Sean says, Messiah compared to Granada, which is the bigger city with more amenities, restaurants, etc.? So that's a confusing question. Messiah is the larger city. Granada has all the amenities. Granada is the expensive tourist town, so it's full of restaurants, but at much higher price than you're used to in Nicaragua. I lived in Granada, and I don't enjoy it from a living perspective because you become the perennial outsider. There's no way to become part of the community in Granada unless you're Nicaraguan, because there's so many tourists, right? There's a nonstop parade of just tourists, plus a ton of the expats who don't do a lot of research end up there. So you have certain types of large quantities of expats in Granada, and it simply creates a us and them culture. It's not negative. It's not like, oh, them. It's just, oh, you're an extranjero. You're a foreigner. You're not becoming part of Nicaragua. This is not your community. That's why you're in Granada. And 99% of the time, they're correct. Over 50% of the time, they're correct because you're literally just on vacation. Of the remaining time, most of the people who choose to live in Granada either are like me, got there, got your feet wet, and are like, this is the wrong city, I gotta go. Or they just never check anything else out and don't realize that they gotta go. Or they want to be around a whole bunch of other expats and aren't looking for the Nicaraguan experience and found that Granada is a halfway point, that it's not like San Juan del Sur where they're stuck in an expat zone, but it's not like Leon where you're stuck in a Nicaraguan zone. You can kind of play both sides of the fence. So a lot of people end up there for that. And that's fine. But it very much... Oh, thanks, Larry. It very much makes for an oil and water situation. You will rarely be viewed as part of the community or a future potential part of the community. You're just not going to have that vibe. And for me, that's exactly what I wanted to avoid when I've lived almost anywhere, with some exceptions. I worked really hard to try to live like that was my home. When I lived in Spain, I lived in a small village in the mountains, and my kids played with the local kids and went out and did the local kid things, right? When we lived in Italy, we lived in the middle of the residential district in the middle of the city. When we lived in Ukraine, we lived downtown in an old Soviet era apartment block. When we lived in Romania, we lived in a small village in the middle of Transylvania, in the middle of nowhere, the only foreigners in town. When we lived in Panama was different, but we lived in a no American zone. We lived in a Costa Rican expat zone. A lot of that kind of stuff, right? So we always tried to be a part of our community. Granada was actually one of the hardest places to fit in, to have a kind of it was one of the hardest places to have any kind of natural connection to the place. It just was really hard because of all the tourists. And it's the only time that I've ever lived in a tourist zone, right? So it really stood out as being a very different place. So, oh, hold on. Messiah, you'll still have a lot of foreigners. You're in a zone that's really heavy with foreigners, but Messiah is nothing like Granada. It's not one of the tourist stops. It's not a big expat enclave or anything like that. So while you won't be like Leon, certainly won't be like Chinandega, where you have essentially no foreigners, you'll have very few. Unless you're right in town. Now, Laguna de Apoyo, you're going to have foreigners everywhere. It's so expensive that basically everybody's foreign up there. But there's only a handful of people. But it's because of that stuff. So Granada has like the biggest density of restaurants in the country. Nothing comes close to it. Larry says, Sabor de Dragon Treehouse. Just send a link, which you just got. Diego says, what about the Bistro Chinese in the Gallerias? They're decent. They've got some stuff that I'm like pretty shocked by, but it's a beautiful venue. Some of the food is quite decent. You got to be careful. But they've got some decent stuff. Is it as good as Leon? No. Is Leon super awesome? No, it's just the best one we found. Sean says, perfect. We will be mostly eating at home and finding the closest fresh produce and meat. That'll be easy. You can get that anywhere. You won't go into either city probably if you're in Laguna de Apoyo. Nemesis Garcia. Here's a fun fact. One of my favorite Chinese dishes is ginger beef. I remember eating ginger beef ever since I was a kid here in Calgary. Turns out ginger beef is not a Chinese dish in the U.S. Is not a Chinese dish in the U.S. I found out at an airport in the U.S. I asked for ginger beef at an airport fast food Chinese. Cook looked at me weird. Turns out ginger beef is a Canadian Chinese food item. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I've never heard of it. I don't eat meat for a long time, so that sometimes that's something I miss. But that's funny that it's a Canadian Chinese food item. Invented in Calgary. Oh, that's funny. Id Group says, Scott, you should quit early tonight. I'm going to quit pretty soon. I'm feeling rough. How long of a stay do you recommend for a first trip? I recommend coming and staying forever. It's best not to have a second trip. Just make the first one never end. That's by far the best answer. I mean, it's hard to say, right? It really depends on what you want to do and what your otherwise experiences are. I know you've been a lot of other places, so if you're really serious about checking out the country, come and stay for a really long time. There's no reason not to. It's so accessible. The one thing is, of course, those short-term rentals are painful. Hold on. So if you're staying so long that you're not comfortable staying in hotels, that's too long, unless you stay long enough that you're happy getting a long-term rental. So basically, often it's like a month is good, and then 6+ months are good. It's the between 1 and 6 months is where it gets really hard, that you're like, well, I've got to pay at least 6 months for a rental, plus probably a month to even get that rental. So that's 7 months, right? Because you'll put in a month in a hotel to figure out your 6-month rental. And if you do get a 6-month rental, it's not going to be furnished. So even that sucks because you're like, so I'm going to buy all the stuff to furnish this apartment to only be here 6 months. This sucks. But if you stay for a year, then it's like, okay, that worked. But and this really is tough. And I hate this, that there isn't a good answer for Nicaragua, because it's like, this needs to be solved. There should be a way to get, and everyone else has this solved, right? Guatemala has this solved. Peru has this solved. Argentina has this solved. Thailand has this solved. Malaysia has this solved. Probably bits of Africa have this, like everything, right? And so many places you can go and rent 3 months in a furnished place, and it's, $800 a month, and you're like, cool. Really nice furnished place, big house, really comfortable, 3 months with all this stuff. And then you get to Nicaragua and you're like, how do I get a 3-month furnished comfy place? And people are just like, who would do that? Sorry. And you're like, and a lot of people don't do that. So that's why we don't need it. Right? It's not a popular thing. But it's really, really unpopular to have this niche. It's the amount of time that it's furnished, that the price is in any way reasonable, and so forth. It's just it's just a really hard niche, because most people who come on vacation or whatever are only here for a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2. But if you're here for only that long, quite often you are going to be moving around a little bit, right? You're going to be bopping between different cities or whatever, and not looking for a long-term apartment or even a short-term apartment, because you want to move around. You want that flexibility. So, for example, you might put in a week or 2 in Managua, a week or 2 in Leon, a month in Granada. Great. You just got 2 months, but never did you get something long enough to get an apartment. So Airbnb works out fine, or hotels. Whereas there's a ton of furnished rentals in San Marcos. The question, Diego, is not, are they furnished rentals? Are they furnished rentals available for less than 6 months at any kind of reasonable price? That's the question. And maybe there are, but around 4 months. Really? What kind of places? That's super surprising. Because normally things that are 4-month rentals are student housing. Yeah, Sean says stay as long as you can afford. We have been to all the countries in Central America with the exception of Panama for an overlay, and have just decided on Nicaragua or Guatemala. I've also been to all of them, including having lived in Panama, and Nicaragua and Guatemala are definitely our top picks. For sure. We decided on Nicaragua for us, for reasons, but Guatemala is fantastic, and I do work up there, so I get to go up. Not all the time, but relatively often, just for work. And I work in Belize, so I'm often quite often I'll end up. This is the funny thing about this region. I'll go from Nicaragua and catch a flight to Panama, which takes me to El Salvador, which takes me to Guatemala, which takes me to Belize, and it's like, with the exception of Costa Rica and Honduras, I just went to all of Central America just trying to get between here and Belize. Like, it's a little bit much, but that kind of stuff really does happen. It's a little bit crazy. All right, let's just see how many people are on. I think I'm coughing. Oh yeah, we don't have very many people on. So it's a good time to call it a night. Everyone knows I'm sick. I'm sorry that we've only done a little bit over 2 hours, but can't be a long one all the time. And hopefully everything's okay with the hospital. We got no pending questions, so as long as no one's asking anything right now, it's a good time to wrap up. I'm going to get some fluids, find some dinner, feed my kids, maybe go play some Dungeons and Dragons with them. And thanks everyone so much. Please remember to give a thumbs up. It does help. El Salvador was a close second to Guatemala. It's definitely got some nice stuff, and their airport's pretty fantastic. And they're really close. Like, you can live in Guatemala and go to El Salvador. Like, their big cities are so close to each other. They really are pretty complementary in that way. But Exposé says 17, but I don't know what that was in reference to. Oh, 17 on 17 thumbs up. Ah, gotcha. Sean says, be well, sir. Diego says, the San Marcos thing is mainly because of the college. That's the thing that I'm worried about, is student housing. Most Americans will not, or North Americans won't accept what is normally seen as university housing as a house rental or an apartment rental. They'll see it as a really rough student. They'll be like, whoa, no. Mostly student apartments, but people rent the entire house once in a while. Well, that's cool. Could be worth checking out. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Have a good... Can't even get through it.